You're listening to Real Estate for Real People, hosted by the Stone Sisters. The Stone Sisters have built an award-winning realty business, and they're here to share some of their knowledge with you. A new episode drops every Thursday. If you enjoy the show, please share it with a friend and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. And visit www.stonesisters.com for more information just like this.
Thank you so much for joining us again. We are here with another episode of Real Estate for Real People, and I am really looking forward to today's episode. Right now, today, we've got our speakers from Burton Marine Pile Driving. We've got Mike Doiron and Nick Yaskiw. Did I say those both right?
Correct.
All right, good.
Yes.
And so we're going to talk today about putting a dock in. You know, we have lots of buyers that come here and lots of you that are sellers right now or owners of a property. And you're looking at, okay, you know, we live on this beautiful lake. We would like to start the process and put a dock in, but what does that look like? What are the costs? What kind of materials can we use? Or somebody's moving here from out of town and you're thinking, we really want to buy on the lake. You know, that property has a dock. Can we make modifications to that dock? So these are some of the questions that we're going to be talking about today. So please stay with us and you will learn all about the docks. First off, let's talk about Burton Marine Pile Driving. And let's talk about the company. If you can tell us a little bit about the company itself.
So we've been in business here in Kelowna for approximately just over 20 years.
Wow.
And we are one of the largest pile driving companies in the Okanagan. We have 3 barges working. We have 20 employees, and so we build somewhere around plus or minus 50 docks a year.
Wow!
And we keep busy. We also have that's residential, and then commercial. We build marinas as well. Things like McKinley Landing, large marina complexes. We build in other provinces as well.
Oh, okay, I didn't realize that.
The U.S. We have
You're a pretty big company.
That's for sure.
And you guys work the whole Okanagan Lake. Is that correct? Do you work the other lakes, Woods Lake and
yes, so Okanagan, Woods, Kalamalka. So basically our barge can move.
Mm-hmm.
So put it on a truck. We go to any place in Canada.
Oh, excellent. Okay. And tell us a little bit about yourselves. How long have you been with the company? You know, we always like our listeners are always actively, of course, they're interested in real estate. So I always like to put a little plug in there as, you know, we all live in the Okanagan and this is why we get to enjoy this amazing lifestyle. So you both live here. Do you love living here? How long have you lived here for?
Okay, sure. Yeah. Again, so I'm Nick Yaskiw and I've been living in the Okanagan for about 6 years with my wife.
Awesome.
We're over in West Kelowna, Shannon Lake area.
Beautiful.
I've got a background in project management, business management degree, and took my experience, brought it to the Okanagan here and applied at Burton Marine Pile Driving. And so I got my foot in the door and I've been helping the company develop designs, permitting, and dabble in the marketing side of the business as well.
Awesome. That's great.
Love the golf season out here as well. A little bit of skiing and snowboarding.
Yeah. It's a great lifestyle. That's why most people live here, I think, or move here. So amazing. Yeah. And how about yourself?
Yeah, I've been in the business for quite a while. My first dock I built in 1978.
Get out.
I've been in Kelowna for over 50 years.
Wow.
And when I came to Kelowna, the first thing I did was look at the real estate and buy a property on Okanagan Lake. So my property is over 50 years old and enjoying it ever since.
I bet you have and haven't looked back.
You got it.
It's amazing. And you get to work on the water, right?
Exactly.
To some degree. So
exactly.
That's amazing. So let's talk a little bit about, maybe we should start with the permit process, or somebody comes to you and says, okay, hey, we want to put a dock in. What does that look like? How does that start?
Okay, well, and even prior to the permitting process, a customer is maybe expected to have an idea as to what they want to do with their property. They want to explore that. So they'll work with Mike, and initial site visit consultation would be included. We do that for free. We take photos, we document the existing conditions of the property, and then we develop designs and solutions for compliant docks.
Right.
Once a customer is ready to submit an application, Burton Marine Pile Driving works with all of the various government authorities, requiring you to either notify them or ask permission to build a dock. So we start with the province and it branches out from there. So the applications will go in, we'll submit a Section 11 application under the Water Sustainability Act, and they then send out referrals to the federal government, which may be required to. We may be required to submit more information.
Right.
They also send out referrals to the municipalities. So it's multifaceted. Our expertise allows us to network with all the professionals required.
Yeah.
And so we do a lot of stuff in-house, but we also work with a lot of the environmentalists, archaeologists to develop a comprehensive application that's detailed and results in a compliant permit to build a dock.
So
But
do you
the
really...
key there also is
Yeah.
to understand what you're buying.
Right.
So you want to buy you want to buy a piece of property, you have to understand, first of all, that the home you're buying is important.
Yeah.
And also you're buying a home that is on Okanagan Lake, and you can buy across the street for a lot less.
Yes.
So
True.
you have to understand the house you're buying, and more so the lakeshore that you're buying. Is it in, again, you talk to the ministry about spawning zones and mussels and so what are the problems on the lakeshore?
Right.
So do you have non-compliant issues on the lakeshore, like concrete, like old docks that need to be torn down?
Right.
So those are the things. So you contact the Front Counter BC. You contact them. They'll give you an idea of what the issues are on your property, whether your dock is compliant, whether you need to build a new dock, and whether you actually can build a dock on your
Right.
property. So if you are in a black zone and you own a piece of property, if there's no dock on that property, you have a problem.
That's right.
And spawning zones change over time. So you have different levels of spawning zones. So you don't want to be holding on to a piece of property for a long period of time if your dock is in a spawning zone, because it could change to a higher level, and therefore you miss out on having a dock on the lakeshore property that you bought.
Right. So that's great advice. So really, if you buy a property and right now and today you're allowed to put a dock in, put the dock in. Don't wait.
Put it in.
Yeah, makes sense. That's great advice.
And then the size of the dock changes too. So
Right.
spawning zone, no spawning zone, you can have different square footages of a size dock. So therefore you don't want it to change to a spawning zone. But if it does, a dock is available, but the size has changed, and therefore everybody thinks big is better, and we can go from there.
Right. No, that makes sense. So then really you help people, it sounds like, from the starting position all the way through, talking to them, because I think it can be overwhelming. We've known a few clients that put docks in, and they just find the process can be overwhelming. So I think that the first step is to hire a reputable company like you guys, and you'll kind of walk them through that process, and you know who to talk to. And, it sounds like you do such a comprehensive report that, you understand everything that the ministry is going to ask ahead of time, which I think makes a big difference.
Yeah. And the key, again, is you can approach us first, but then for the real details, Front Counter can give you the history of that property.
Right.
Because maybe past owners of that property have done damage to the property
And
on the lakeshore.
Yeah. So
already.
let's talk about that for a second, because we've all heard these cases, and maybe our listeners haven't, but we've heard these cases where on waterfront, past owners or an owner has done some damage over the years. Maybe it was years ago, and then they go to sell that property, and maybe they successfully sell that property, but now all of a sudden the ministry comes and says, you gotta deal with this before you can put a dock in or do something.
But that should be realized during the sale process. So realtors should understand the foreshore as well, so that they can make sure they give that information to the client, and therefore there's no surprises. So again, we run into lots of times where the client buys a property, and he or she finds out later that the property has some compliance issues, and then Front Counter phones you and says that you have to tear down part of that dock.
That's right.
And
or all your dock.
Or all your dock.
And you can't have one or something.
Yeah. If there was a dock there, generally you can put a dock there in the future.
Okay, that's good
yeah,
to know too.
yeah.
Okay, that's perfect. And it's interesting because it's something that you do see, and it's something that realtors should always address, is making sure that that dock is compliant. And it's a subject that we now see as commonplace, but years back you didn't see it as commonplace of people getting that information ahead of time. So I think that's a great point in it. So if you're an owner and you look and say, okay, your property can have a dock, you want to put a dock in, what roughly is the cost? And I know that's really dependent, but for a basic general permission dock, can you give a range or?
Yeah, roughly, we're probably talking somewhere around $60 a square foot.
Okay.
So if you have 1,000 square foot dock, that's $60,000, right?
Right.
Now that those costs can go up to $120 a square foot. So we're talking about a wood dock, wood piles, wood frame, wood top. $60 a square foot is a number that you could start at, and then basically, if you start talking about steel piles, composite decking, aluminum frame,
Right.
that's a second generation dock. Again, you're spending a lot of money on your home, and people should be proud of the dock as well as the home.
I agree.
So we build art. Our docks are like artwork.
Yes.
And if you want a company that gives you the same quality as your home, then Burton Marine is the one.
And thank you. And we've used, personally, we've had experience with your guys' company, and it's been excellent. So we can certainly vouch for that. And we've had many clients use you guys as well, and it's been just seamless, which is great. When somebody's saying that they want to have a dock put in, what do you recommend? If and I'm not saying that money is no object, but you want to have a dock that's second generation or third generation, as you said, which I love. So what materials would you recommend? You probably want to use, I would say, composite. You want to use, am I right in that, or?
Yeah, that's correct. And so for the dock that's going to last a lifetime, probably steel pilings, they last a lot longer than wood. We can go to aluminum frame.
Yeah.
And then composite decking seems to be almost the base entry now. The demographic has changed on the lake. Maybe traditionally 5-6 years ago, more wood. We're seeing a transition to composite being the starting point, and prices can go up depending on the type and grade of composite.
Yep. Right, of course. No, that makes sense.
And longevity is the one thing. So now you see docks that were built 25 years ago, 30 years ago, that are failing.
Yes.
So to guarantee the footprint of the dock for a longer period of time, we would recommend steel piles, aluminum piles, which have maybe 80-year lifetime, maybe more.
Yeah.
So and then over time the legislation changes. So if you have that footprint nailed down for a longer period of time, you don't have to replace the dock. So
it's so true.
So 15 years ago, dock sizes were larger. Today they're smaller, and tomorrow, from an environmental footprint point of view, they could be smaller again. So it just nails down the footprint of that of your new dock to fit with your home and lifestyle.
So smart, because you look at them making changes, and you look at how many docks there are, and that might be my next question. But you look at how many docks there are. Will they always allow docks? And that's a question. Who knows what the future holds as the lake gets busier and busier? I think they'll probably always allow docks to some degree, but they probably will get smaller. Maybe, who knows? But again, if you can do a certain size, it's just like you said before. If you can put a dock in now, don't wait. And if you can do a certain size and do a certain quality, make sure that it lasts.
Right.
And that makes sense. It's, you're spending a lot on your waterfront property, so you want to make sure that you put that quality in.
The other big thing I ask clients is what is your lifestyle? Do you want one boat? Do you want 2 boats? Your children want a boat as well. Do you want these toys on the docks?
Yeah.
Right. And a dock is for moorage. So with the ministry and with Front Counter, a dock is for moorage. So, but also a dock is for pleasure and as well. So basically, we design where the boat lifts are going and how many you want on a dock, and you have to make those compliant to the regulations. So if you want 2 boat lifts and 2 sea-doos on a dock, then that dock has to fit that size.
Right.
And they has to be enough water to supply that and not do damage to the environment. So it's a conversation that you had for not sure just for today, but where are you going to be in 10 years?
So
what's your
smart.
family going to be like in 10 years, and what will the needs be in 10 years? So let's design a dock for the future.
Absolutely. I love that. And it's so true. How will they, use that property? Because what they're doing today is probably going to be very different in 10 years from now. And again, going that same idea, forecasting how you're going to use it, because you're not going to be able to go backwards easily without a huge expense.
Exactly.
So build it out sort of as to what you want. Now, that's another question too. If you're wanting to put in, 2 boat lifts and jet skis you've got and all of that, there must be, and I didn't ask Patrick Tobin this, but there must be some fairly restrictions, some fairly tight restrictions as far as that goes. And it must be due to the water, height or what have you. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So as part of the application process, we have to design not only a plan that we're submitting to the province where that dock fits on the property as far as property corners, but as far as the length of dock, we have to take bathymetry and measurements for water depth. And so with a lake level that fluctuates, we'll go out there each day of the week. We'll record the lake level and the depths that we're achieving anywhere from 10, 20, 30, 42 meters out to the max.
Right.
And you have to hit a certain lake elevation before you can widen out from a 5-foot walkway being the max walkway size
Right.
out to a 10 feet or 3 meter
Right.
max
Okay.
moorage area, right? So you have
Makes
to hit
sense.
a certain depth before you can widen out, before you can put a boat lift in.
Right.
And then some of those restrictions become more, invasive or more burdensome if
Yeah.
there's spawning, mussels, and
Right.
environmental impacts as well.
Right.
Yep.
Now, something that we're seeing as the water has shifted in the Okanagan, and I'm sure yourself, you've noticed a huge difference in the lake itself over the last 50 years being on the water. But, we notice that, certain areas that were deeper water before are now, quite shallow. So how does that affect a dock? Can you easily, and this is a question I didn't ask Patrick either, can you push out that dock? And, we had talked briefly about the length of a dock, and I know that's all governed, but if the water levels change, does that give you that right? Or have you seen that happen that people are now asking you, can we push our dock out further? Can we expand our current dock?
They're asking, and again, Pat, with the ministry, they decide on that. But generally, we have a lot of properties out there that are deep water, and a lot of them, let's say in the Mission, that are shallow, and so the key with they have a maximum length. And then the environmental side of the ministry discusses whether that shallow water is appropriate for certain size boats and
Right.
boats itself. But generally, we the goal is not to scour the lake bed and make it again not to damage the environmental footprint of the
Right.
lake bed. And boats, if the water is shallow, then there's a problem.
Yeah.
And then also at the same time, if the dock is too long from a navigational perspective, there's a problem as well. So the ministry looks at that, and we look at that, and they sign off on it according to our measurements and our design and our profile of the lake bed that we give them. And they rule on that going
Right.
forward. Yeah.
So I guess it's a bit of a case by case to some degree.
That's right.
But I'm sure you're seeing more people inquiring about that. I can think of a few people that we know that, I'm sure that's a question that they're going to be asking, if we have another summer like we did last summer, that they're going to be looking at having that changed.
The ministry would require your proof of water depth problems.
Right.
And then they would rule on that.
Right. No,
Yeah.
that makes sense. It's out of your hands, but something you certainly could do is add on to a current dock. Question, because we used to see, and I'm going back a long time ago. I've lived here since the 70s too. I was born and raised here in Kelowna. And, you used to see way back when you'd see floating docks. You don't see floating docks anymore. Is that something that they've totally gone away from, or is it just something that people just don't do? Because
I would say the majority of our docks are fixed, elevated, just because of the natural weather and waves on the lake. We do have requests for floating docks, and we'll build floating docks.
Yeah. Okay. So it's people are still doing them. You're just not seeing them as often. Probably they're not as durable. So it doesn't make sense, I guess. Yeah.
They're moving all the time,
Yeah.
24
That's right.
hours a day.
Yeah. So the
And-
durability is, yeah. No.
So it seems to, after a period of time, the people want the docks gone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
And they add to the square footage area too. So no one really wants to sit on a floating dock because of movement, right? So they only think they need it for moorage and dropping off people because the lake is moving up and down. They think they need it for moorage, but in the end, they find out that it's not a good fit, and therefore we remove a lot of them, and we don't rebuild a lot of them. So, floating docks.
So looking at that, what are some of the trends? I guess that's one, but any other trends that you're seeing, with docks? Kind of, we are saying, you said materials, you're seeing a shift to more composite. That's kind of become the norm in the last 4 or 5 years. Any other sort of trends that you're seeing in the market right now for docks?
I can maybe speak to some of the environmental trends that I've seen.
Yeah.
So submitting anywhere from 40 to 60 applications a year. As we say, sometimes the goalposts change or the requirements change or even the guidelines change. So when I first started work at Burton Marine Pile Driving in 2017, post-flood, we had a lot of blanket approvals to do repairs and to maintain docks and bring them back into compliance. To do any works on the lake now, you have to apply for a Section 11 application. An example of a technical change that has occurred is the size of the flares. I'm talking the widening out from the walkway to the moorage area. You used to be able to go from 5 feet to 10 foot, a nice symmetrical or like a nice angled 5-foot flare. Now you're only allowed to put a 3-foot flare or 1 meter max in metric. This is an environmental justification, right?
Right.
Things like bumpers or vertical boat defenders.
Yes.
On Okanagan Lake, under the large lake foreshore protocol, the bottom of that bumper can be no lower than a certain elevation. And so as a result of the height that we tend to build docks at, that bumper is about 3 feet. On Kalamalka Lake, we can go 4 feet bumpers.
Okay.
So there's just certain nuances and certain technical details of docks that have maybe become more restrictive over the years.
Right.
And in spawning zones, you can only have a certain number of bumper batter boards, or not bumper batter boards, but vertical boat defenders.
Okay.
Right.
So that's more what's changing. It's not necessarily people's needs and wants that you're seeing. It's more the environmental aspect of it.
Yeah, that's one aspect. But again, needs and wants. Again, now the costs of homes are going up, up. So
especially waterfront.
Especially waterfront, and then again, they're spending a lot more money on their home. So they want to spend a lot more money on their dock.
Yes.
And they want that quality. So again, when we talk about the steel and the composite, and they want to be proud when they walk out on a dock or their friends walk out on your dock.
Yes.
That they really see a difference, and whether it's the colors, whether it's the mixture of colors on a dock. So you have a wood dock in the past. Now we have a mixture of colors on the dock that matches their home. So again, if you have a tan or you have a charcoal, then the dock colors are tan and charcoal and mixtures. And when you step onto that dock, you walk out onto that dock and out to your platform, and then you jump into your large ski boat, and they all sort of fit together.
Yeah, it's an extension of the home now.
Exactly.
Whereas it didn't used to be, going back 20 years or so. It was, there's your dock, but it was very different than the house.
It's not like cottage country, your picture of cottage country where you have a wooden dock now.
No.
These things here are highly sought after. And again, when you have a piece of art, when you get a dock from Burton Marine.
Well, and I think you said that so well. It is a piece of art, and people are wanting to display their pieces of art.
Exactly.
And have it tie into their house, and it's an extension. And I think that shifts with our whole, everything has shifted, of course, with lifestyle. Everybody wants this lifestyle. They want the indoor-outdoor living. And that's why, you look at waterfront properties, and they have, of course, gone up. One segment of the market that has continued to go up even when the rest of the market sort of turned. And we just don't have that inventory and supply because everyone wants to be on the water. And everyone that's on the water, they all want to have a dock. And a nice dock.
Yes.
Before we finish up here, just any sort of points of, advice that you would give someone when they're looking at wanting to put a dock in?
The key is again, talk to your dock builder about issues on the waterfront, what you have. Again, the width of your property determines what size of dock you have. So you have to make sure it fits within your property. And then basically have a discussion with Front Counter BC to see if historically, if there's any problems on that water on the lakeshore, and make sure that you don't incur costs that are surprising down the road. So
Great advice.
Again, you take a good look at the house, take a longer look at the property, and make sure that you're happy with your purchase.
Great advice. Anything else to add?
Yeah, I think as far as helping the realtors, we like to be able to communicate with them to make their life easier, to help their customers with the sale of their property. And for the end user and the new owner, we want to build them their forever dock. So we're here to help.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, that's so good. One last thing before I let you two go, and thank you so much because I've taken up a lot of your time, and I know you have to go soon. But one quick question: do you do more than just docks? Do you guys put in trams? Do you any of those other items?
We work with companies for trams,
Okay.
That type of thing. So as well, but also we build walls. So our commercial side of the business, we build walls, we build piles for buildings, for large buildings, 3-foot piles driven into the ground to support buildings. So we have a commercial side. We build bridges. We have a land operation as well. So
I had no idea of
crowns, cranes, excavators, so that's our commercial side. And we're doing a number of properties here in the Okanagan right now.
That's amazing. So you guys really do it all.
But we do it all, and in the end, if someone is looking for a dock, call Burton Marine Pile Driving.
Absolutely. So thank you both for joining. That was amazing. I learned a lot of different points, and I think actually for sure our viewers have as well. So where can people reach you? So they want to put a dock in. They know they need to phone Burton Marine. Do they just look you up online and contact your office, or what's the best?
Yeah, give us a shout online. Look us up at burtonmarinepile.com. Call the office, 778-755-6600. You can email us at info@burtonpiledriving.com.
That's amazing. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for being here today. All right. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. We will see you next time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Real Estate for Real People. If you want to reach out to the Stone Sisters, visit www.stonesisters.com. This podcast was produced by Podigy Podcasts. See you next time.